Hash the river between the stars. Hash Chapter 1, The Arriving. There is a place where the mountains begin to soften, where the great stone ridges that have stood since before memory was first spoken lose their sharp edges and dissolve into something gentler, something curved and breathing. And it is there, at the very threshold where the high world meets the valley below, that you find yourself, though you could not say how you arrived, only that you are here now, and that here is exactly where you were always meant to be. The light is fading, not quickly, not with any urgency at all, but in the way that light fades on an evening in late summer when the sun has already slipped behind the western ridge, and what remains is not darkness but a softening, a slow and honeyed withdrawal, as though the day itself is simply growing tired and choosing, very gently, to lie down. The sky above you holds the last amber and the first violet, and between them a pale and luminous blue that seems to go on forever, and the clouds, if you could even call them clouds, are more like breath, like the exhalation of the mountains themselves, drifting in long and almost imperceptible ribbons across that deep and quiet heaven. You are standing at the edge of a river. Not a great river, not one that would be marked on any map with bold or confident lines, but a river nonetheless, real and alive and moving, and it is perhaps the most beautiful thing you have ever seen, though beauty is not quite the right word for it, because beauty suggests something to be admired from a distance, and this is not that. This is something to be entered. This is something that has been waiting for you. The water comes from somewhere high and hidden, from snowfields and glacier lakes that sit in hollows between peaks so ancient that the rock beneath them remembers the slow grinding of ice ages. And it has been traveling for a long time before it reaches this place, this quiet bend in the valley where you stand, and by the time it arrives here it has been changed by everything it has touched, by the granite and the schist, by the roots of alpine willows, by the small bright stones that line its bed. And so it moves with a kind of wisdom in it, a patience, a long and easy knowing. The sound of it is the first thing that truly settles into you. It is not a roaring, it is not even what most people would call a rushing. It is closer to a murmuring. Continuous and layered whisper, as though the water is speaking to itself in a language made entirely of softness. And the different currents and eddies and small falls over mossy stones create a texture in that sound, a richness, the way a choir is richer than a single voice. And you find that your breathing begins, without any effort or intention on your part, to move in time with it. The mist is what you notice next, or perhaps it is what you notice again, because in truth it has been here all along, rising from the surface of the water in thin and wandering threads, catching what remains of the evening light and turning it into something almost luminous, almost solid, and it curls around your ankles and rises to your knees and drifts across the river in slow and serpentine shapes that have no edges, no boundaries, only the gradual and beautiful blurring of one thing into another. The air that carries it is cool, but not cold, cool in the way that a stone from a mountain stream is cool when you hold it in your palm, cool in a way that feels like kindness, like the earth offering you something gentle and clean to breathe. And there, at the water's edge, resting against the bank as though it has been placed there by someone who knew you would come, is a boat. It is a small boat made of dark wood that has been smoothed by years of use and by the slow and patient action of water and weather, and it is long and narrow and low, almost like a cradle in its shape, and the wood of it has a warmth to it even in the cooling air, as though the sun has been stored inside it all day and is only now beginning to release itself. There is a single flat seat across its middle, and at one end a cushion of woven wool, thick and soft, in colors that are difficult to name in this light, something between green and brown and the deep blue of a twilight sky, and the boat rocks very gently in the current, a slow and rhythmic breathing of its own. You step into it, the motion is easy, natural, as though your body already knows the weight and balance of this particular vessel, as though you have done this 1,000 times before in some other life or some other dream, and the boat receives you without protest, settling only slightly lower in the water, and you sit, and you are comfortable in a way that goes beyond the mere softness of the cushion beneath you, comfortable in a way that reaches into your bones and your breath in the quiet place behind your thoughts where tiredness lives. The current takes you, not suddenly, not with any force, but with a gentleness so complete that it is almost imperceptible at first, a barely noticeable shift, a slow and silent drawing away from the bank, and then you're moving, and the movement is so smooth and so unhurried that it feels less like traveling and more like being carried, the way a child is carried in the arms of someone who loves them, with care and with warmth and with an attention that asks nothing in return. The trees begin on both sides of the river almost immediately, and they are tall, very tall, and they are mostly pine, Scots pine. Their bark reddish and peeling in long thin strips, their crowns high and spreading and dark against the violet sky, and between them stand the occasional larch, slender and golden-leaved in the last of the light, and the smell of them is extraordinary, a deep and resinous sweetness that seems to rise from the very ground. From the thick layer of fallen needles that covers the earth in a carpet so soft you could sleep on it without any blanket at all. The pines lean toward the water in places, their roots gripping the banks, their lower branches trailing, and the space beneath them is dim and deep and cool, and filled with a silence that is not empty but full of small sounds and small lives and the quiet breathing of a forest at rest. The river bends, and as it bends the world changes, just slightly, just enough to notice. And now the banks are lined with smooth gray stones, river-worn and ancient, and among them grow clusters of moss so green it seems almost to glow in the fading light, and small ferns, and here and there a patch of wild thyme or a spray of meadowsweet, pale and fragrant, nodding in the barely perceptible movement of the air. The water over these stones makes a sound like silk being drawn across silk, a sound so soft and so continuous that it becomes, after a while, indistinguishable from silence itself. You watch the light change. This is something you can do here, something the slowness of the journey allows, and the light is changing in ways that are almost too subtle to name. The amber is deepening, warming, turning towards something like the color of old honey, and the shadows in the trees are growing longer and darker, and the mist on the water is catching it all and transforming it, and above you. The sky is moving through its slow and ancient ceremony from day to night, and each moment is different from the last, and yet each moment is also, somehow, exactly the same quality of peace, the same deep and untroubled stillness beneath all the small and gentle changes. A bird sings somewhere in the pines, a single note held for a long time, and then a phrase of 3 or 4 notes, liquid and clear, and then silence again, and the silence after the song is not less than the song but somehow more, as though the bird has broken something open in the quiet, and the quiet is now showing you what was inside. The boat drifts on. You notice that your hands have come to rest in your lap, and that your shoulders, which you did not know were holding any tension at all, have lowered themselves by some small degree, and that your jaw, which you did not know was clenched, has softened and parted slightly, and that your breathing, which you did not know was shallow, has deepened and slowed, and all of this has happened without effort, without intention, simply as a natural consequence of being here. Of being held by this water and this air and this ancient and unhurried world. The river widens a little as it moves through a place where the valley opens, and here the water is shallower and you can see the stones beneath it, smooth and pale and dappled with dark patches of algae and small fish, trout perhaps, their bodies like ribbons of silver and shadow, hold themselves in the current with tiny movements of their fins, facing upstream, and you watch them for a while or perhaps for longer than a while, because time here does not move in the way it usually does. Does not press or hurry or insist upon itself, but simply flows, the way the water flows, without beginning and without end, or if there is a beginning and an end, they are so far away and so gentle that they cannot be felt. The first stars appear, not all at once but one by one, as though someone far away is lighting them with great care, placing each one in exactly the right position in that vast and darkening field. And the first one you see is almost directly overhead, bright and steady and unwavering, and you watch it for a long time, or what feels like a long time, and then there is another, slightly to the east, and then another, and the sky between them is the deepest blue you have ever seen, a blue so deep it is almost black, but not. Quite not yet, still holding within it the memory of the day, still warm with it, still lit from within by some last and fading glow. The mist thickens as the night comes on. Rises from the water in great slow billows now, soft and white and luminous in the starlight, and it moves across the surface of the river in shapes that are constantly changing and yet always the same. Always that same gentle and wandering form, and it smells of water and of pine and of something else, something you cannot name but that you recognize, the way you recognize the smell of your own home when you have been away for a long time, a smell that means safety, that means rest, that means you have arrived. The trees on the banks grow taller as the river descends into a narrower stretch of valley, and their canopies begin to close above you, forming a long and natural tunnel of branches and needles through which the starlight filters in thin and scattered shafts, and the sound of the water changes here, becoming slightly deeper, slightly more resonant, as though the river itself has entered a quieter room and is speaking in a lower voice. The air beneath the trees is warmer, held there by the canopy, and it carries the accumulated fragrance of the forest, Not just the pine resin now, but also the soft and earthy smell of moss and fallen leaves and the rich dark soil beneath them. And beneath that, the faint and ancient smell of stone and water and time. You lie back against the cushion. The motion is easy, unhurried, and the cushion receives you as though it was made for exactly this purpose, for exactly this body in exactly this moment, and your head finds a place that is perfectly comfortable, and your eyes, which have been watching the trees and the water and the stars with a quiet and restful attention, begin now to soften their focus, to let the edges of things blur and merge. Not because you're closing them, but because the world itself seems to be gently dissolving the boundaries between one thing and another, between light and dark, between water and mist, between the sound of the river and the silence of the night. Somewhere far below in the deeper parts of the valley, an owl calls. The sound is low and round and unhurried, and it seems to come from everywhere at once and from nowhere at all, and it hangs in the air for a moment after it has been spoken and then fades, and the night closes around it, and the river carries you on. The wood of the boat creaks very softly as it turns with the current around a slight bend, and the sound of it is like the sound of an old house settling into itself at the end of the day, a sound of things finding their rest, and you feel yourself finding yours here in this boat, on this water, in this valley, where the mountains have been keeping their long and quiet watch since long before there were eyes to see them or voices to speak their names. The light continues to fade. The amber is gone now, replaced by a deep and dusky violet that hangs in the spaces between the trees and above the water and in the hollows where the mist collects. And the stars are brighter now, more numerous, scattered across the sky in patterns that are both random and somehow perfectly ordered. The way snowflakes are random and perfectly ordered. The way the ripples on the surface of the water are random and perfectly ordered. And you watch them through half-closed eyes and feel the boat move beneath you, gently. Gently, and the night comes on. Chapter 2, The Villages Along the Water. The first sign of human life comes not as a sound, but as a light. A single warm glow, amber and steady, peering through the trees on the left bank as though someone has placed a lantern in a window and left it burning for no particular reason other than the simple and ancient habit of keeping a light against the dark. And the light is reflected in the water, broken into 1,000 soft and trembling pieces by the current. And for a moment you simply watch it, this quiet constellation of warmth, and feel something stir in you that is older than thought, recognition. A comfort the way a traveler feels comfort when, after a long walk through empty country, the first roof and the first smoke appear on the horizon. And then there are more lights. They come into view one by one, or sometimes 2 or 3 together, scattered along the bank and up the gentle slope of the hillside behind it. And each one is different, some higher, some lower, some brighter and some dimmer, and together they form a shape, a loose and irregular constellation of warmth and habitation, and you understand without needing to be told that you are passing a village. It is a small village, very small, the kind of place that has no name on any map that would be found in a city, though it almost certainly has a name spoken. By the people who live there, a name that means something in the old language of this valley, something about the river, perhaps, or the mountain, or the particular quality of light that falls here in the mornings. The houses are built of stone at their foundations and wood above, dark wood, the kind of wood that comes from forests that have been managed and tended for generations, cut and seasoned and fitted together with a care and a knowledge that has been passed from hand to hand across the centuries. And the roofs are steep, very steep, pitched to shed the heavy snows of winter, and they overhang the walls by a good amount, creating deep and sheltered spaces beneath them where firewood is stacked in neat and careful piles, and where herbs and flowers hang drying in the cool air. You pass close enough to see a window, lit from within, and in the window, or rather, in the warm and golden space that the window opens onto, you can see, very faintly, the shape of a room. A table, perhaps, or a shelf, and on it something that might be a bowl or a vase, and beyond it the suggestion of walls and a ceiling, and the whole thing is so quiet and so peaceful and so utterly without urgency that it is like looking into a painting. One of those old paintings of domestic scenes in which nothing is happening and everything is perfect. The smell of wood smoke reaches you across the water. It is faint, very faint, just a thread of it carried on the air, and it is one of the oldest and most deeply comforting smells in the world, the smell of a fire burning in a hearth, of wood, perhaps pine, perhaps apple, perhaps a mix of both, giving itself up to flame and heat and light, and it mingles with the smell of the river and the forest and the mist, and the combination of all of them together is so layered and so rich that it seems almost possible to taste it. The village slides past you. It does not end abruptly, but rather thins out gradually, the way a forest thins out at its edges. The last house is set a little apart from the others, and then there's only the dark bank again and the trees, and the river curves away from the settlement and into a stretch of quieter country, and the lights recede behind you and the darkness settles back in, and you feel not lonely but more peaceful than before, as though the village has given you something, a reminder perhaps, that the world is inhabited, that somewhere nearby people are living their quiet lives, sleeping or sitting by fires or listening to the rain, and that this is good, that this is as it should be. The river narrows again, and as it narrows it deepens, and the water grows darker and more still, and the current, though it has not slowed, has become somehow quieter, as though it is moving with more intention now, more purpose, drawing you forward with a gentle and steady pull. The banks here are higher, rising up on both sides in gentle slopes of grass and wildflowers, though the flowers are closed now, folded into themselves for the night, their petals holding the last traces of the day's warmth, and above them the trees stand tall and close, and the canopy overhead is nearly complete, and the stars are visible only in narrow strips and patches where the branches part. And then ahead of you, spanning the river from bank to bank, there is a bridge. It is an old bridge, very old, made of stone and dark wood, and it arches over the water with a gentle curve that is both beautiful and deeply functional. The kind of curve that has been arrived at over generations of building and rebuilding, of watching the water rise and fall and learning slowly what shape will hold, what weight will bear, what form will last. The stones of its piers are covered in moss and lichen, gray and green and pale gold, and they have been smoothed by centuries of water flowing past them. And the wooden railings above, planks of oak or beech, dark with age and with the oil of countless hands, are worn down in places where people have rested their arms or leaned against them to look down at the river below. You pass beneath it. The sound of the water changes as you move into the shadow of the bridge, becoming more enclosed, more resonant, and the air beneath the arch is cooler and damper and filled with a faint and ancient smell of stone and moss. And for a moment you are in a kind of chamber, a natural and man-made chamber of stone and wood and water, and the world above and beyond it, the sky, the stars, the open air, seems very far away and very quiet, and then you are through, and the bridge is behind you. And the river opens out again, and the stars return. The valley widens here, spreading out on both sides of the river in long and gentle slopes, and on these slopes, visible in the starlight if you look carefully, if you let your eyes adjust to the particular quality of darkness that exists here, you can see the terraces. They are old terraces, ancient in fact, carved into the hillside over the course of many generations by many hands, each one a narrow strip of level ground held in place by a low stone wall, and together they form a pattern on the slope that is like the pattern of ripples on the surface of the water, concentric, rhythmic, following the contour of the land with a patience and a care that speaks of a deep and abiding relationship between the people who made them and the mountain on which they live. Some of the terraces are planted with vines, dark and heavy with the last of the autumn's grapes, and some with small and gnarled apple trees, their branches spread wide and low, and some are simply grass, kept mown and green by the mountain sheep that graze here in the summer months. The sound of water changes again, and you look ahead and see that the river has come to a place where it falls not dramatically, not with any violence, but in a long and smooth and silver sheet over a ledge of rock, and the fall is perhaps the height of a man, no more. And the water gathers at the bottom in a pool that is darker and deeper than the river above, and the sound of the falling water is like a long and continuous sigh, released and released and released. And the mist that rises from the pool is thicker here, denser, and it catches the starlight and turns it into something almost solid, almost touchable, a soft and luminous veil that hangs in the air and drifts and settles and rises again. Your boat passes through the pool with ease, the current carrying it forward and then gently slowing as the water deepens, and for a moment you are almost still, almost floating in place, held in this quiet and mist-filled hollow, and the sound of the water falling behind you fills the air completely. Gently, the way a bell fills the air after it has been struck, and you breathe it in and it is cool and clean and alive, and then the current finds you again and draws you forward, and the pool gives way to the river. And the river moves on. There is another village further ahead, larger than the first, and as you approach it, you begin to see it not as lights alone, but as a shape, a form, a settlement that has grown up around the river over many generations, adapting itself to the contours of the land and the rhythms of the water. The houses here are older and more substantial than those in the first village, built of the same dark wood and pale stone, but with more stories, more windows, more of the accumulated evidence of lives lived and lives remembered. And some of them have balconies that extend out over the water, wooden platforms supported by strong and ancient beams. And on these balconies in the darkness, you can see, or imagine you can see, the shapes of flower boxes and drying herbs and perhaps a chair or two left out in the evening air. At the heart of this village, set back slightly from the river on a small rise of ground, there is a building that is different from the others. It is larger and it is older, and it has a quality to it that is difficult to name, a stillness perhaps, or a gravity, a sense of weight and of meaning that goes beyond the merely physical. It is a chapel or a small temple or something between the two, built in the style of the mountains, with a roof that is steep and a tower that is not tall but is very solid. And at the top of the tower there is a bell, and the bell is silent now, but you can imagine the sound it makes, a deep and slow and golden sound, the kind of sound that does not so much fill the air as enter it, as become part of it, as change the quality of the silence around it. The building has small windows, and through one of them, the one that faces the river, as though it was placed there deliberately, as though whoever built this place understood that the river was the most important thing in the valley and wanted to keep an eye on it, or wanted the river to keep an eye on them. Through this one small window there comes a very faint and very warm light, and you watch it as you pass, and it is like watching a single star that has come down from the sky and settled here in this quiet place, among the houses and the trees and the water. You drift past the village slowly, and as you do you become aware of small sounds that belong to it, the creak of a door somewhere perhaps, or the settling of old wood in the cooling night air, and once very faintly the sound of someone moving in a kitchen, clink of something being set down or picked up, and these sounds are so ordinary and so domestic and so deeply peaceful that they seem to belong to the same world as the river and the mist and the stars, to be made of the same stuff, woven into the same fabric of quiet and continuous life. The river carries you past the village and into a stretch of country where the valley begins very gradually to narrow again, and the slopes on either side draw closer, and the trees grow thicker, and the canopy above grows denser, and the darkness deepens, and the mist thickens, and the world shrinks to the width of the river and the height of the trees and the depth of the night sky visible through the gaps in the branches above. Here on the left bank, set back among the pines in a clearing that seems to have been made for it, as though the trees themselves have stepped back to make room, there is another building, and this one is different again. It is a monastery, or at least a place of retreat, small, very small, perhaps only 2 or 3 rooms, built of the same pale stone as the others, but with a quality of intentional simplicity that sets it apart, as though everything unnecessary has been stripped away, leaving only what is essential, only what is needed for a life of quiet and prayer and attention to the world. There is a garden beside it, walled on 2 sides by stone and open on the other 2 to the trees. And in the garden, visible only as dark shapes in the starlight, there are plants, herbs and flowers, and perhaps a few small fruit trees, and the smell of the garden reaches you across the water, faint but real, a green and living smell layered with the particular fragrances of lavender and sage and rosemary, herbs that have been grown in mountain gardens for centuries. For their scent and for their medicine, and for the quiet ritual of tending them. A lamp burns in one of the windows of the monastery, a small oil lamp, and its light is very steady and very warm, and it seems to you as you watch it that someone is sitting beside it, reading perhaps, or simply sitting in the deep and unhurried quiet of the night, and that their sitting is itself a kind of prayer, a kind of attention, a way of being present to the world that requires no words and no movement and no effort at all, only a willingness to be here in this place, in this moment. And to let the moment be what it is. The monastery recedes, the trees close in again, the river moves on. And as it moves on, the landscape changes once more, subtly, continuously, the way a piece of music changes as it moves from one passage to the next, not with any sharp transition, but with a gradual shifting of tone and texture and mood. The pines give way here and there. The beech trees, their trunks smooth and pale and silvery in the starlight, their leaves still on the branches, though many have fallen, a deep and rustling green that is almost black in the darkness. The river here is gentle, almost lazy, moving through a wide and shallow stretch where the water spreads across a bed of fine gravel, and the sound it makes is different here, softer, more diffuse, a wide and continuous murmuring rather than the focused whisper of the narrower stretches above. On the banks growing close to the water's edge, you can see, or feel rather, since the darkness is too deep for true seeing, the shapes of alder trees, their roots reaching down into the water like fingers, and between them clusters of willow, their long and trailing branches touching the surface and moving with the current in a slow and hypnotic dance. And among the roots and the branches, in the shallow places near the shore, small lights appear and disappear, the cold blue-green lights of fireflies. Or perhaps of something else, something older and less explicable, something that has been dancing here on summer nights since long before there were names for the things that dance. You watch them, these small and wandering lights, and they are beautiful and they are peaceful, and they move in patterns that seem almost random and yet somehow purposeful, as though they are tracing out a design that is too large and too complex to be seen from any single vantage point, and you let your eyes follow them without effort, without striving, simply watching, simply being, and the boat drifts on, and the night deepens. And the river carries you forward into the quiet and the dark and the ancient peace of this valley that has been here, in one form or another, for longer than human memory reaches. The sound of the river is the only sound now, or very nearly the only sound, and it fills the night the way water fills a vessel, completely, gently, leaving no empty spaces, and you listen to it. And it is like listening to the world breathe, like listening to the slow and steady heartbeat of the earth itself. And the sound is always the same and always different, always moving and always still, and it is the most peaceful sound you have ever heard or will ever hear, and you let it move through you. And you let it carry you, and you let it be. Chapter 3, The Deepening. The moon rises. It does not announce. Itself, it does not burst upon the scene with any drama or any force. It simply appears, the way a thought appears when you have been sitting very quietly for a very long time, gradually, gently, as though it has always been there, and you are only now becoming aware of it. First, there is a brightening in the east, a slow and almost imperceptible increase in the quality of the light, as though someone has turned up a lamp by the smallest possible degree. And then there is a glow, a pale and silvery glow, rising from behind the ridge of mountains that lines the eastern horizon. And then between one breath and the next, between one moment and the next, the moon itself is there, hanging in the sky above the valley like a lantern hung by an invisible hand. Full and bright and impossibly still. And the world changes. Not dramatically, not in any way that would startle or disturb, but completely, thoroughly, in a way that reaches into every corner of the landscape and transforms it. The mist, which has been a soft and formless white, becomes now a luminous and almost liquid silver, and it moves across the water in shapes that are sharper and more defined than they were before, shapes that catch the moonlight and hold it, that seem to glow from within, as though the mist itself has become a source of light. The water, which in the darkness was only a sound, a presence felt rather than seen, becomes now a visible thing. A long and winding ribbon of silver and shadow, moving through the valley with a quiet and purposeful grace, and you can see the ripples on its surface, each one a tiny ridge of light, and the way the current bends and turns around the stones in its bed, and the way the eddies form and dissolve and form again, and all of it is beautiful in a way that is almost painful, almost too much to hold. And yet it is also completely peaceful, completely without tension or effort, and you simply watch it, and it simply is. The trees in the moonlight are extraordinary. The pines, where they still stand along the banks, are dark and tall and almost black, their needles absorbing the light rather than reflecting it, and they create between them spaces of deep shadow in which anything might be hiding, though nothing is hiding, nothing at all. There is only the quiet and the dark and the slow breathing of the forest at rest. But the birches, there are birches here now, you notice, slender white bark. Trees that stand among the darker pines like visitors from another world. The birches are alive with the moonlight, their bark catching it and turning it into something almost luminous. And their leaves, which have turned gold in the autumn and hang now in thin and trembling clusters, move in the faintest breath of wind, and each one catches a small piece of the moon and holds it for a moment before releasing it. And the effect is like looking at 1,000 tiny flames, golden and silver and soft, swaying gently in the dark. The air is cooler now, noticeably cooler, and you pull the edge of the woven blanket that lies folded at the end of the boat up across your lap and your chest, and the wool is thick and soft and warm, and it smells faintly of lanolin and of the mountain sheep from whose wool it was spun. And beneath that smell there is the smell of the hands that spun it and wove it, hands that knew this work intimately, hands that had done it 1,000 times. Hands that understood the particular weight and texture of mountain wool and could feel, by touch alone, when the thread was right and when it was not, and you wrap yourself in it. And the warmth of it is like being held, and you sink a little deeper into the cushion beneath you, and the boat rocks very gently, and the river moves on. You begin now to notice things you did not notice before, or perhaps you have noticed them all along and are only now allowing yourself to become aware of them, the way you become aware of a sound you have been hearing for a long time without truly listening to it. The river has a texture to it, a complexity that goes beyond mere movement. There are layers to its sound, a deep and continuous note, low and smooth, that seems to come from the water itself, from its sheer mass and its long and patient movement, and above that a lighter and more variable layer of smaller sounds, the tapping and clicking and whispering of water against stone, against wood, against itself, and beneath all of it, so deep that it is almost felt rather than heard. A vibration, a pulse, as though the river has a heartbeat of its own, slow and steady and ancient. And there are other sounds, too. The insects are singing. Not loudly, they have never sung loudly, these mountain insects, these tiny and ancient creatures who have been making their music in the dark for millions of years, but continuously, persistently, a thin and shimmering layer of sound that hangs in the air like the mist hangs in the air, everywhere and nowhere, filling the spaces between the larger sounds with something that is almost like texture, almost like fabric, a fine and intricate weave of vibration and silence. You hear crickets perhaps, or katydids, their songs rising and falling in rhythms that are both random and deeply regular, and you hear other things too, things you cannot name, small and high and delicate, and together they create a sound that is like the sound of the night itself singing, or like the sound of the stars if the stars could sing. The mist moves over you. It drifts across the surface of the water and rises and falls and drifts again, and sometimes it passes over the boat over you, and when it does it is like being touched by something that has no weight and no substance and yet is somehow real, somehow present, somehow alive, and it leaves on your skin and on your clothes a faint and barely perceptible dampness, a coolness as though the mountain has breathed on you. And you feel it on your face and on your hands and on the backs of your eyelids as you close your eyes, just for a moment, just to rest them. And in that moment, in that brief and quiet darkness behind your closed eyes, you find that the world has not disappeared but has simply changed its form. The river is still there. You can hear it, feel it, sense its presence and its movement beneath you and around you. The mist is still there, cool and soft against your skin. The stars are still there, even though you cannot see them, held in place above you in their ancient and unchanging patterns. And the mountains are still there, vast and patient and old beyond imagining, holding the valley and the river and the villages and the trees, and you in the same quiet and unconcerned embrace. They have held everything since the very beginning of the world. You open your eyes, the moonlight has grown brighter, or perhaps your eyes have adjusted, and the world is more vivid now than it was before, more detailed, more present, as though the night has decided to show you something, to reveal something that it keeps hidden during the day, something that can only be seen in this particular quality of light, in this particular stillness, in this particular hour when the world is most itself. The river here is wide and slow, and it reflects the moon so perfectly that for a moment, you cannot tell which is the real moon and which is the reflection, the one above you, hanging in the sky, or the one below you, floating in the water, wavering slightly with each small movement of the current, breaking apart and reforming and breaking apart again in a dance that is both endless and impossibly gentle. And the mist lies on the surface of this reflected moon like a veil, like a translucent cloth laid across a mirror, and through it the light moves and shifts and breathes, and it is one of the most beautiful things you have ever seen, and you watch it for a long time, or for what feels like a long time, and you let it fill your eyes and your mind in the quiet space behind your thoughts where sleep begins to gather itself. Memory comes to you as it sometimes does in moments like these, not a specific memory, not a single event or a single face or a single place, but something more diffuse, more general, a sense of having been here before or somewhere very like here, in some other life or some other dream or some other quiet evening that has long since passed and been forgotten by everything except the deepest and most secret part of you. It is not a sad feeling. It is not a longing exactly, though it is close to longing in its texture. It is more like a recognition, a gentle and wordless acknowledgement that you have traveled a long way to get to this place, and that the traveling has been good, and that arriving here now in this boat, on this water, in this night, is exactly right, is exactly as it should be. The river carries you through a place where the banks are lined with ancient willows, their trunks thick and gnarled and twisted into shapes that seem almost deliberate, almost purposeful, as though the trees have been trying to say something with their bodies, trying to express something that words cannot express, and their branches hang down into the water in long and trailing curtains of green and gold, and the water moves through them and around them with a sound like breathing. Like the slow and rhythmic breathing of someone who is deeply, peacefully asleep. And you think, or rather you feel, because the bright are now dim, and the places that were dim are now touched with light, and the whole landscape has rearranged itself, subtly, continuously, the way a dreamer rearranges the furniture of a dream without noticing, without effort, simply by the act of dreaming. And you watch it rearrange itself, this quiet and luminous world, and you feel nothing but a deep and wordless gratitude for the fact that you are here to see it. The river narrows again, and the water here is darker and deeper, and it moves with a sound that is lower and fuller than the sound it made in the wider stretches above. A sound that seems to come not just from the surface, but from somewhere beneath it, from the very bed of the river where the ancient stones lie, worn smooth by millennia of water passing over them. The current is gentle here, almost imperceptible in its forward motion, and the boat moves as though on its own, as though it knows the way, as though it has made this journey many times before and remembers every bend and every stone and every place where the water deepens or shallows or turns. You think of water, not this water specifically, but water in general, the way it moves, the way it finds its way, the way it never resists and never forces, but simply goes where it is drawn, following the contours of the land with a patience and a flexibility that is almost impossible to imagine in anything else, in any creature or any person or any made thing. It does not fight the mountain. It does not argue with the stones. It simply moves around them, over them, through them, and in doing so it changes them, slowly, imperceptibly, over the course of centuries and millennia, wearing them down and smoothing them and carrying them, grain by grain, toward the sea. And you feel, as you drift here in the darkness, that there's something in this, something you cannot quite name, cannot quite hold in words, something that has to do with the way you have been living, or the way you might live if you were to let yourself be taught by water, if you were to let yourself be as patient and as yielding and as quietly persistent as this river has been for all the long ages of its flowing. The banks here are made of a pale and fine-grained stone, almost like sandstone, and in places the water has carved shapes into it, smooth and rounded hollows, spiraling grooves, long and curving channels that follow the grain of the rock, and these shapes are visible in the moonlight, lit from one side and shadowed on the other, and they are beautiful in a way that suggests not design but time, not intention but the slow and patient work of water on stone. Repeated and repeated and repeated across an ocean of years. You let your eyes move over them, these carved and ancient shapes, and you feel something settle in you, something that has been unsettled for a long time, something that has been waiting for exactly this kind of quiet, this kind of stillness, this kind of unhurried and continuous attention to the small and ancient beauty of the world. A bat moves through the air above you. You see it only as a shadow, a quick and silent shape against the stars, and then it is gone, and the air where it was is empty again, and the night is as it was before, and the sound of the water is as it was before, and the mist is as it was before, and everything is exactly as it has always been, and exactly as it will always be, and you are here in the middle of it, held and carried and moving gently forward through the dark. The smell of the night changes very slightly as the river descends. The pine resin is still there, deep and sweet and constant, but beneath it now there is something else, a cooler smell, a greener smell, the smell of wet stone and of the moss that grows on wet stone, and the smell of the earth itself, the dark, rich earth of the valley floor, and beneath that, very faintly, the smell of something flowering, though what is flowering in the dark you cannot say. Perhaps it is a night-blooming plant, one of those rare and quiet flowers that open only when the world is asleep, that bloom for no audience but the moths and the stars, and that close again before dawn without ever having been seen by human eyes. You breathe it in. You breathe it all in, the pine and the stone and the earth and the unknown flower, and your breath comes in and goes out and comes in again, and each breath is slightly deeper than the last, and each breath carries a little more of the night into you, and you feel yourself becoming very slowly, very gently, part of this place, not a visitor but an inhabitant, not a traveler but a native, as though the river and the mist and the moonlight and the dark are not things you are passing through, but things you are made of. Things that have always been inside you, things that are only now, in this quiet and sacred hour, making themselves known. The water carries small things, You notice this now in the moonlight, small pieces of leaf, curled and brown, drifting on the surface beside the boat, and a twig very small, turning slowly in the current, and a single feather, white and light, floating on the water as though it were made of air rather than of anything solid. These things move at the same speed as the boat, in the same direction, carried by the same current, and they seem to you, watching them, like companions on this journey, like fellow travelers on the same slow and quiet road, and you watch them drift alongside you with a kind of affection, a kind of fellow feeling, and you let them be. The moonlight on the water is hypnotic. It moves and shifts and breaks and reforms with every small ripple, every tiny disturbance in the surface, and yet it is always there, always present, always returning to itself, the way a song returns to its melody after a passage of variation, the way a breath returns to its rhythm after a moment of holding. And you watch it, this constant and changing light, and your eyes grow heavy, not with tiredness exactly, but with a kind of fullness, a satiation, as though you have been drinking something very nourishing and very gentle, and your body is now full of it, full of the night and the water and the moonlight and the mist, and it is telling you very quietly, very kindly, that it is time to stop watching and simply be. The river bends again, and as it bends it opens into a wide and still pool, a natural basin where the water slows almost to stillness, and the surface here is so calm, so perfectly undisturbed that the reflection of the moon, and it is almost indistinguishable from the moon itself, a perfect circle of light, floating in the dark water, surrounded by the reflected stars and the reflected trees and the reflected mountains, and the whole thing, the water and the sky, the real and the reflected, forms a single, seamless world. A world without a boundary between above and below, between up and down, and you float in the middle of it, in the boat, in the wool blanket, in the warmth and the quiet. And for a long moment you cannot tell which way is which, and it does not matter, and the not mattering is itself a kind of peace, a kind of freedom, as though the world has removed one of its oldest and most unnecessary rules and shown you what remains when it is gone. The pool is full of stars. Not only the reflected ones, but others small and dim and close to the surface, like sparks that have fallen from the sky and are floating there, cooling slowly in the dark water, and you watch them, these tiny lights, and they are beautiful, and they are still, and they are ancient, and they have been here in this pool since long before you arrived, and they will be here long after you have gone, and this thought does not make you sad, but makes you peaceful. Makes you feel that you are part of something that is larger than you and older than you and more patient than you, and that this is good, and that this is enough. The boat drifts through the pool and finds the current again on the far side, and the river narrows and deepens, and the water moves faster now, very slightly, and the sound of it changes, and the mist thins, and the moonlight finds new shapes to fall upon, and the journey continues as it has been continuing, as it will continue, without hurry and without pause, carrying you forward into the night. Chapter 4, The Slowing. The river slows. You feel it before you see it, feel it in the way the boat moves beneath you, in the way the current changes from a pull to something gentler, something more like a suggestion, a whispered invitation to go a little slower, to move a little less, to let the motion become quieter and quieter until it is barely motion at all. The water here is deep, deeper than it has been anywhere along the journey so far, and it moves with a heaviness, a density, as though it has been gathering itself for a long time, drawing in water from all the tributaries and the streams and the small hidden springs. That feed it along the way, and now it is full, very full, and it moves with the slow and deliberate grace of something that knows exactly where it is going and is in no hurry at all to get there. The sound of it has changed. The murmuring is softer now, less articulate, less like a conversation and more like a single sustained note, low and smooth and continuous. The kind of sound that does not so much fill the air as become the air, that does not so much accompany the silence as replace it with something that is almost indistinguishable from silence itself. You listen to it, this deep and quiet sound, and you feel it move through you the way a vibration moves through a bell after it has been struck, not as something external, not as something you are hearing from the outside, but as something internal, something that is happening inside you, in your chest, in your bones, in the quiet and deep place where breath lives. The trees are very tall here, taller than they have been anywhere else along the river, and very old and very still. They are a mix of pine and fir and the occasional oak, and their trunks are thick, some of them thicker than a man could wrap his arms around, and their bark is dark and deeply furrowed, carved by centuries of rain and frost and the slow and patient work of time. The canopy above is dense and continuous, a ceiling of green and dark, and the moonlight comes through it only in thin and scattered shafts, each one a column of silver light falling through the darkness like a thread of something fine and luminous being drawn down from the sky to the forest floor. And where these shafts touch the water, they make small bright patches, islands of light in the dark surface of the river, and the boat drifts through them, one after another, and each one is the same, and each one is different. And you watch them pass, and you let them pass, and you do not try to hold on to any of them. The mist is thicker here than it has been at any point in the journey. It lies on the water in a continuous and unbroken layer, soft and white and luminous, and it moves very slowly or does not move at all. It is difficult to tell because everything here moves so slowly that stillness and movement have become almost the same thing, almost indistinguishable. The way sleep and waking become indistinguishable in the moment just before you fall asleep, when the boundary between the two dissolves, and there is only a gentle and continuous deepening. You are very comfortable. This is something you notice, not with surprise, but with a quiet and grateful awareness, the way you might notice on a cold morning that you are warm beneath your blankets, that the warmth is there and has been there all along and is simply quietly doing its work. The cushion beneath your head has molded itself to the shape of your head, or your head has molded itself to the shape of the cushion. And the wool blanket is wrapped around you loosely, gently, and the boat beneath you rocks with the smallest and most imperceptible movements, and all of it together, the cushion and the blanket and the rocking and the warmth, forms a kind of cradle, a kind of nest, a kind of held place in which you can simply be, without effort, without attention, without anything at all except the quiet fact of being here. The river moves, the boat moves with it, the mist moves with the boat. And you move with all of them, carried along by the same slow and patient current that has been carrying you since the very beginning, since the moment you stepped into this boat at the edge of the water in the last light of the day, and the current has not changed. It has always been this gentle, this unhurried, this deeply and fundamentally peaceful, and you have simply been learning, gradually over the course of the journey, to move with it, to stop resisting it in ways you did not know you were resisting. To let yourself be carried the way the leaves and the feathers and the small bright pieces of bark are carried, without effort, without struggle, simply surrendering to the direction the water is moving and finding, in that surrender, something that is not weakness but strength, not passivity but a kind of deep and quiet participation in the life of the world. A fish moves beneath the boat. You feel it more than see it, a slight disturbance in the water, a gentle push against the current, a movement that is quick and purposeful and then gone, and the water closes over the place where it was, and the surface is smooth again, and the mist settles again, and the night is as it was, and the river moves on. The sound of the water is like a heartbeat. You have thought this before, earlier in the journey, and you think it again now, or rather you feel it again, because thinking has become very difficult here, very effortful, like trying to lift something heavy in a dream, and so you have stopped thinking and have simply begun to feel, to notice, to be aware of things without naming them or examining them or turning them over in your mind. The sound is like a heartbeat. The movement of the boat is like a heartbeat. The rise and fall of the mist is like a heartbeat. And your own breathing, which you can feel moving in and out of your chest with a slow and steady rhythm, is like a heartbeat too, and all of these heartbeats are, somehow, the same heartbeat, the same rhythm, the same deep and ancient pulse, and you are inside it, and it is inside you, and there is no difference between the two. The banks on either side are very close now, and very quiet and very dark. The trees grow right up to the water's edge, their roots reaching into the shallows, their lower trunks darkened by the moisture of the river, and the ground between the roots is covered in moss, thick, soft moss. Kind of moss that has been growing in this damp and sheltered place for a very long time, and it is so dark it is almost black, and if you were to reach out and touch it, though you do not, though you simply let your hand rest where it is in your lap beneath the blanket, it would be softer than anything you have ever touched, softer than silk, softer than water, softer than the air itself. The night is very deep now, not dark. Dark is too simple a word for what the night is here in this place at this hour. It is deep in the way that a lake is deep, in the way that sleep is deep, in the way that silence is deep, not an absence but a presence, not an emptiness but a fullness, a richness, a density of quiet that seems almost to have weight, almost to have substance, almost to be something you could hold in your hands if you reached out and gathered it. And you are inside this depth, and it is around you, and it is above you, and it is beneath you, and it is the most comfortable and the most restful and the most deeply peaceful place you have ever been. The water makes a sound, a very small sound, barely audible, a tiny ripple or a tiny fall, somewhere just ahead of you or just behind you, and then the water is smooth again and the sound is gone and the quiet returns, and you listen to the quiet the way you would listen to music, with attention, with appreciation, with a willingness to let it move through you and do whatever it needs to do. And it does. It moves. Through you, it settles into you. It fills the spaces inside you that have been empty for a long time, or that you thought were empty, and turns out they were not empty at all, but simply waiting for exactly this kind of quiet to come and fill them. The moon is high now, very high, almost directly overhead, and its light falls straight down through the gaps in the canopy in thin and vertical columns. And where it touches the mist, it turns the mist to silver. And where it touches the water, it turns the water to silver. And where it touches the trees, it turns the bark to silver. And everything is silver, everything. And the silver is soft and cool and ancient. And it is the color of peace, or the color that peace would be if peace had a color. And you are bathed in it, wrapped in it, held in it, the way you are held in the wool blanket, the way you are held in the boat, the way you are held in the night. You breathe in and out, in and out. The breath is very slow now, slower than it has been at any point in the journey, and each breath seems to take a very long time, or perhaps time itself has slowed, has stretched itself out like the river stretches itself out across the valley floor, becoming wider and shallower and more diffuse, and the moments between one breath and the next are long and full and rich with quiet, and you do not rush them, you do not try to fill them with anything, you simply let them be what they are. Long and quiet and full of the sound of water and the smell of pine, and the cool and gentle touch of mist on your skin. The river moves, the boat moves, you move. The moving is so slow now, so gentle, so barely perceptible, that it might not be moving at all, or it might be that everything is moving, the water and the boat and you and the mist and the trees and the mountains and the stars, all of it moving together in the same direction at the same speed, carried by the same vast and patient current that has been flowing through this valley since the mountains first rose and the rain first fell, and the water first found its way down from the high places to the low places, and will continue to flow long after everything that is alive here has gone to sleep and woken again and gone to sleep once more. There is a sound somewhere in the distance, very faint, very far away. It might be the bell of the chapel you passed earlier, the one in the second village, the one with the tower and the one lit window, and the bell is ringing, or perhaps it is already rung. And what you are hearing is not the bell itself, but the last faint echo of it, the last vibration of the sound as it moves outward through the air, growing softer and softer and softer until it is almost nothing, almost silence, almost the same as the quiet that surrounds it. And you listen to it fade, and you listen to the quiet that replaces it, and they are almost the same thing, the fading and the quiet, and you let them be almost the same thing, and you let the difference between them dissolve, the way the mist dissolves in the moonlight, the way the light dissolves into the dark, the way all things dissolve eventually into the great and patient quiet of the night. The boat creaks very softly, the same soft creak it made earlier when it turned with the current around a bend, the sound of old wood moving against old wood, the sound of something that has been doing this for a long time and knows exactly how to do it. And the sound is warm and quiet and deeply familiar, and it is one of the sounds of this journey, one of the sounds that belongs here, that is part of the texture of this night, and you hear it and you feel it and you let it be. The water is very still here, so still that the boat barely seems to move at all, and yet it does move, you can feel it, a slow and continuous and almost imperceptible drift, forward and forward and forward, and the stillness of the water and the movement of the boat exist together without contradiction. The way silence and sound exist together, the way dark and light exist together, the way sleep and waking exist together in this hour, in this place, in this boat on this river, in this valley, beneath these trees, beneath these stars. You close your eyes. Not deliberately, not as an act, simply as something that happens, as something your body does because it is ready to do it, the way a flower closes at the end of the day, not because the light has gone, but because the closing is what flowers do at this hour in this season, and it is right, and it is gentle, and it is the most natural thing in the world. And the darkness behind your closed eyes is not empty, it is full of the river and the mist and the moonlight and the sound of water and the smell of pine and the cool touch of the night air and the warmth of the wool and the gentle rocking of the boat and the vast and patient quiet of the mountains and the stars and the ancient dark. All of it is still there, all of it is still moving, all of it is still holding you. The river moves on, the boat moves on, and you move on with them gently, gently, gently into the quiet, into the dark, into the deep and slow and ancient peace that has been waiting for you here at at the bottom of the mountain, at the end of the water, at the place where the world comes to rest. Chapter 5, The Stillness. There is a place where the river stops being a river. Not suddenly, not at any particular moment that you could point to and say, here, this is where it changed. But gradually, so gradually that by the time you become aware of it, it has already been happening for a long time, and the change is almost complete, and what was once a moving thing has become something else, something quieter and slower and more still, and what was once a sound has become something closer to silence, and what was once a journey has become something closer to rest. The water here moves the way breath moves in sleep, in and out, back and forth. A tiny motion barely perceptible that is not going anywhere and does not need to go anywhere, that simply is the way the night simply is, the way the stars simply are, the way the mountains simply are, present, patient, continuous, without beginning and without end, and without any need for either. The boat has stopped rocking. Or perhaps it is still rocking, so gently, so imperceptibly that the rocking and the stillness have become the same thing, have merged into a single continuous state that is neither one nor the other but both. And you are in it, and you have been in it for a long time or for no time at all, because time here has become very thin, very transparent, very easy to see through. And what you see through it is not emptiness but something else, something that has no name, something that simply is. The mist is everywhere. It is on the water, and it is on the air, and it is on your skin, and it is in your breath, and it is between the trees, and between the stars, and between the moments of your breathing. And it is soft, and it is cool, and it is alive, and it is the most gentle thing you have ever felt, and you are inside it, and it is inside you, and there is no boundary between the two, no edge, no place where one ends and the other begins, and this is not strange, and this is not frightening, and this is not anything at all except peace, except quiet, except the slow and simple fact of being here, in this place, in this night, in this boat, in this mist, in this stillness that is not empty but full, so gently and continuously full. The moonlight is very soft now. Softer than it was before, or perhaps your eyes are softer now, and the light is falling on them in a way that is almost like touch, almost like the lightest possible pressure on the eyelids, and your eyelids are closed or nearly closed, and the light moves through them in a slow and golden way, and you do not open your eyes to see it, because seeing is not what is needed here, and what is needed is not seeing but simply being, simply existing in this place, in this moment, in this quiet. And letting the quiet do what it does, which is to hold you and to carry you and to take you where you need to go. Where you need to go is very close, it is not far at all. It is right here, in fact, right here in this boat, in this mist, in this dark, in this silence that is not silence but a kind of music, a kind of sound that is so quiet it has become indistinguishable from the quiet itself. And you are already there, or very nearly there, or perhaps you have been there for a long time and have only just now begun to notice. The river is very quiet, the quietest it has been. The sound of the water is so soft now, so thin, so faint that it is more like a feeling than a sound, more like something you sense in your chest than something you hear with your ears. And it is the sound of the world settling, the sound of the world finding its rest, the sound of the long and slow and patient process by which everything that moves eventually comes to stillness, and everything that is awake eventually sleeps, and everything that is lit eventually darkens, and everything that is full eventually empties. And then fills again, and then empties again, and the cycle goes on, and on, and on, without hurry, without effort, without anything except the quiet and continuous turning of the world. You are very warm, the wool blanket is around you, thick and soft and warm, and beneath it your body is heavy, pleasantly heavy, the kind of heaviness that comes not from tiredness but from deep and complete relaxation, as though every muscle and every sinew and every small and intricate mechanism inside you has let go of its work and is simply resting, simply existing, simply being what it is, a body, alive, breathing, warm, held at peace. The trees are very still. They have stopped moving, or they are moving so slowly that their movement is indistinguishable from stillness, and their shapes in the darkness are like the shapes of things seen in a dream, present but not quite solid, real but not quite defined, familiar but not quite known. And the space between them is full of dark and full of mist and full of the faintest smell of pine resin and moss and earth, and the space is very quiet, and the quiet is very deep, and the deep is very gentle, and the gentle is very still. A star moves, or a star appears, or a star that has always been there becomes visible in a gap between the branches overhead. And it is very bright, very steady, very still, and you watch it, or you do not watch it, because your eyes are closed now or nearly closed, and the watching has become something else, something more like feeling, more like sensing, more like knowing without seeing, and the star is there, and it is beautiful, and it is ancient, and it has been shining for longer than the mountains have been standing. And it will continue to shine long after everything below it has gone to sleep and stayed asleep for a very long time. The boat is still or the boat is moving. It does not matter. The movement and the stillness are the same thing here in this place, in this hour, in this deepest and quietest part of the night. They are the same thing. The way your breath in and your breath out are the same thing, different names for the same continuous process, the same unbroken act of living, the same quiet and automatic and deeply peaceful exchange between you and the world. You breathe in, the air is cool and clean and full of the night, full of the mist, full of the scent of the mountain and the river and the ancient forest, and it fills your lungs very gently, very slowly. And it is like being filled with something good, something nourishing, something that your body has been waiting for without knowing it was waiting, and the filling is quiet, and the filling is warm, and the filling is slow. You breathe out, the air leaves you very softly, carrying with it something that you no longer need, something that you have been carrying for a long time without knowing you were carrying it, and it goes out into the night and dissolves into the mist and becomes part of the air and becomes part of the dark, and it is gone, and you are lighter for its going, and the lightness is quiet, and the lightness is gentle, and the lightness is very, very still. The river, you hear it, or you feel it, or you simply know it is there, the way you know the ground is beneath you even when you cannot see it, the way you know the sky is above you even when it is dark, the way you know the world is turning even when you cannot feel it turn. The river is there. It has always been there. It will always be there. It is the oldest and the quietest and the most patient thing in this valley, and it is carrying you, and it has been carrying you, and it will continue to carry you. And the carrying is so gentle that it feels like not moving at all, like simply being held in place by something warm and soft and ancient and kind. The night is very deep now, deeper than it has been, deeper than deep. A depth that has no bottom, or if it has a bottom, it is so far away that it cannot be felt or imagined or reached, and you are floating in this depth. You in the boat, in the mist, in the water, in the silence, all of you floating together in the same vast and quiet and bottomless dark, and the floating is peaceful, and the floating is warm, and the floating is the most natural thing in the world, the most easy, the most effortless, the most deeply and completely right. The stars are very still. They have always been very still. They are the stillest things in the world, the stillest things in the sky, the stillest things in all the long and quiet history of the night, and they are there above you in their ancient and unchanging patterns, and they have been watching over this valley for longer than the valley has existed, and they will continue to watch over it long after everything in it has fallen asleep and dreamed and woken and fallen asleep again and again in the slow and endless cycle of the world. You are sinking not into anything frightening, not into anything dark or cold or unwelcome, into something warm, into something soft, into something that has been waiting for you patiently, gently for a very long time, and that is now at last receiving you, and the receiving is quiet, and the receiving is slow, and the receiving is the gentlest thing you have ever felt. The mist is on your face, cool and soft and barely there. It is like a kiss, or like the memory of a kiss, or like something even lighter. And more delicate than either of those things, something that has no name, something that simply is, something that moves across your skin and leaves nothing behind it except a faint and barely perceptible coolness, a faint and barely perceptible dampness, a faint and barely perceptible sense of having been touched by something very old and very gentle and very alive. The boat rocks the tiniest rock, the smallest possible movement, so small that it might not be movement at all, but simply the world breathing. Simply the water breathing, simply the night breathing, and the breathing is slow, and the breathing is deep, and the breathing is continuous, and it goes on and on and on, in and out, in and out, in and out, and each breath is the same as the last, and each breath is the same as the next. And there is no beginning, and there is no end, and there is only the breathing, and the quiet, and the dark, and the warmth. And the rest, the trees are sleeping. You can feel it somehow in the quality of the air, in the quality of the silence, the way the forest has settled into itself. The way the branches have stopped their smallest movements, and the leaves have stopped their smallest rustlings, and everything has grown very, very still, and the stillness is deep, and the stillness is warm, and the stillness is the kind of stillness that only comes very late at night, in the deepest hours, when even the wind has stopped and the world has drawn its breath and is holding it. Gently in a long and quiet pause. The water, you hear the water, or you feel the water. Or you simply know the water is there, beneath you, around you, moving in its slow and endless way, carrying you forward or not forward, because forward does not mean anything here, because here there is no direction, only a gentle and continuous flow, a gentle and continuous moving, a gentle and continuous carrying, and the carrying is so quiet and so slow that it has become indistinguishable from rest, from stillness, from the deepest and most peaceful kind of not moving that there is. The moon is still, the moon has always been still. It hangs in the sky above the valley, above the trees, above the mist, above you, and it shines, and the shining is quiet, and the quiet is deep, and the deep is still, and the still is warm, and the warm is close, and the close is gentle, and the gentle is slow, and the slow is quiet, and the quiet is deep, and the deep is still, and it goes on and on and on, like the river, like the breathing, like the turning of the night. You are here, you have always been here, you will always be here, in this boat, on this water, in this mist, in this dark, in this quiet. In this valley where the mountains keep their watch and the stars keep their shine and the river keeps its flow and everything keeps what it keeps, gently, patiently, without effort, without end, and you keep yours too, your breath, your warmth, your quiet and continuous being, and the keeping is easy, and the keeping is peaceful, and the keeping is the most natural thing in the world. The night holds you, the mist holds you, the water holds you, the boat holds you, the wool holds you, the dark holds you, the quiet holds you, the stars hold you, the mountains hold you. And all of these holdings are the same holding, the same gentle and continuous and ancient embrace, and you are inside it, and it is inside you, and there is nothing else, and there does not need to be anything else, and the nothing else is not empty, is not lacking, is not missing anything at all, but is full, so gently and quietly and completely full of everything that matters, everything that has ever mattered, everything that will ever matter, which is simply this. The quiet and the dark and the warmth and the rest. The river moves very slowly. The boat moves with it very slowly. The mist moves with the boat very slowly. And you move with the mist, and the mist moves with the night, and the night moves with the stars, and the stars move with the turning of the world, and all of this moving is so slow and so quiet and so gentle that it is the same as not moving at all, the same as simply being, the same as simply resting, the same as the deepest and most peaceful and most complete kind of stillness there is. And the river flows on, and the mist drifts on, and the stars turn on, and the night goes on, and you rest, you rest, you rest,